Hi, welcome to episode number 29 of the Smack Happy Videocast. I'm Nicole.
I'm Danielle.
And we have decided to shift gears a little bit on the videocast. We're going to start answering questions about your online business challenges. And the first question that we want to tackle is kind of a common theme as we asked our clients, what are your challenges? This one kind of popped up a lot. And it is, of course, how to get more leads. And we want to kind of shift that question more to how to get better leads or how to get the right leads. And Danielle just happens to be an expert in this and have a lot of knowledge. So she's going to give us some tips and we'll discuss it and hopefully give you something you can use and start working on.
Yeah, so what a loaded question, I think this is, because there's so much you could talk about. And what I'm trying to avoid when talking about this is making it sound like I have all of the specific answers that you need right now to do the whole sort of setup on your website or whatever. But
yeah, there's no magic quick solution to this.
No. But, in speaking about it in sort of like a bigger picture overall idea, just knowing that there's a lot of steps. Maybe not a lot of steps, but there's a certain amount of steps that you'll need to take to make sure that the whole kind of machine works. It's a well-oiled machine that's going to be getting you, the leads that you want from the beginning to the end. So, I guess one of the things that I thought about when we decided to talk about this topic was that, there's so many articles out there that are like, 1, 2, 3 steps. And I'm not saying that that's something you can't, kind of do your own research on and, find some things that you want to do. It's great for like brainstorming and also for implementing specific pieces of the whole sort of strategy. But I think the real first step in figuring out, why you're not getting leads, is probably just reaching out to someone who does know a lot about this, and whether that's us or someone else or a friend or somebody who knows a lot about websites or marketing and things like that, lead generation. It's just good to kind of have a conversation about it because that person can guide you, through some questions and kind of like pick your brain as to, what have you done on your website lately, for example, like, did you have a big redesign? So there could be something that is like really apparent on why you're not getting leads. And that typically, like I said, leads to, let's say you had a redesign recently on your website. Maybe the form isn't working. Always test your forms to make sure that someone can actually contact you. So that being said, Nicole, what do you think about that?
Oh, well, that's a great point, but it reminded me that there could also be something else wrong, something super simple like robots.txt being blocked.
Oh, yeah.
And this is just a simple, it's very technical, and it's like a little file or a checkbox in your site that blocks search engines from crawling your site.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, there's so many different angles you could try to tackle this, and there could be a lot of, different things that would cause you not to get the leads.
Mm-hmm.
Because another thing along with a redesign is, your content probably changed too.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And if you had this old content that was, cached with the search engines, and now your content has changed, maybe you're not turning up for the same search results anymore. Maybe it's worse, maybe it's better, but that also has a huge effect on people finding you and coming to your site.
Yeah. Gosh, there's lists of, technical reasons, and there's also external reasons why that could be happening with, this portion of it, meaning maybe Google recently updated their search algorithm.
Yeah, that happens fairly frequently because they're trying to
Yeah.
prevent the
Yeah.
scammers from scamming them. So they're
Yeah.
always updating that algorithm and changing and tweaking and
Yep. So then it could also be something that you haven't done.
right.
So your website is, I don't even know. The span of time right now is probably 2 years, 1 year, 2
Mm-hmm.
years. Um, if the website isn't constantly maintained, and let's just say that nobody's done anything on the website for 2 years, that at that point is probably, I don't know, it could be like 10 algorithm changes behind.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of them, most of them are just tweaks, but some of them really count for something. Like one of them in the last couple of years is, the mobile, they're, everybody's site needed to be mobile friendly for a long time. But at this point, if your site isn't mobile friendly, it's pretty much guaranteed that it's not going to rank very well.
Yeah.
What that's saying now to this algorithm and to users, according to Google, is that, you're not really up to date. You maybe, don't care as much about whatever you're selling on your site. It's just, and that doesn't mean that's the truth, but that's what it looks like when someone is taking, their 2 seconds to judge you when they land on your homepage.
Yeah.
And go ahead, Nicole.
Well, along similar lines, Google also at some point over the last year or two said you have to have a secure site as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? You need to have the HTTPS with the little green lock.
Yep.
And it's for similar reasons, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of things I think recently within the last couple of years have become, went from best practices, we suggest that you do this, to best
Must have.
practices, we kind of require that you do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're really not huge feats, those couple of things, those couple changes, but I guess so, step one was being that figuring out if something apparent happened.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking kind of like a step 2, or maybe the next step, is to think about maybe nothing apparent happened. Maybe it's just something that that's kind of, you have to dig deeper on. Like, you went through a lot of content and copy, and you have all this great stuff on your site, and that you have really great things to say, but possibly your customers, clients, potential, people who are going to sign up with you or buy your products, it doesn't resonate with them the way you think it does. So a lot of research and a lot of digging can go into that, and talking with that person that we mentioned in step 1, whoever that professional would be, is to kind of ask them, maybe you need to do sort of like a quote unquote audit of the things that you have on the site. Maybe take a look at analytics and see where people are going and how they move through the site, and try to take advantage of that a little bit. And I think a part of that too is probably just starting with a buyer persona. If you don't have a lot of content, or you're not sure who your audience is, so I guess maybe I should talk about what a buyer persona is. So it's just sort of like a
brief overview, maybe.
Yeah, a brief overview. It's a brief overview of who your customer is, who you're talking to, and how you want to talk to them. So it's sort of like this little cheat sheet. So when you're writing, you can literally refer to it, but this is just sort of like a persona that you keep in mind, anytime you're saying anything about your business. I mean, not even on your website, but just staying consistent across the board.
Right. It's a capture of your ideal customer.
Mm-hmm.
So that you're making sure you're speaking to that person as opposed to speaking in general to everybody.
Yeah.
right?
Yes. Yeah, and one of the things about those, just a little side note, is I think a lot of clients get caught up in the details of the buyer persona. You should really think of it as more of this ongoing, changing sort of
Yeah.
living document.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be set in stone, because as you
Yeah.
work with more clients, you might narrow that down more and more as to like who is the right fit for you.
Mm-hmm. Especially when you're starting it. And I think there are some people, some business owners, and not business owners, just people who have websites, who are trying to sell, or sell a service or sell themselves even. um, they they still insert who they want to talk to, like more so than considering this is who they want to talk to, but this is also how they want to be spoken to as well. Like this, you have to sort of relate the two things. So it could be that that first iteration of it anyway isn't going to be the right one. But then I think there's almost like an aha moment when you're like, oh, this is the kind of client or customer that I really want. And you just kind of take that person and then write them down on a piece of paper.
Yes.
Out. So
Yeah.
That's another way to do it, I guess.
Yeah, and we have a worksheet, so we'll include that in the notes for this video cast, so you can, if you don't have your buyer persona, you can define it.
Yes. So maybe a step 3, if we're going to kind of summarize everything. After all of this work is done, and granted, like we said in the beginning, there's probably a million other steps in between each thing, and maybe some of the steps don't apply to you, which is also another reason why step 1, talking to somebody, is important. But the summary, I think, and the next step after all of this is to, kind of determine, I don't want to say budget. We say budget, but it's really an investment, and you're investing in yourself or your business. So figuring out how to get all of this done. Typically, like, business owners don't have the time to do this, which is totally understandable. They shouldn't have to. They should be doing, working on instead of in. I think that's a common theme that we've talked about in other video casts, and I mean, in our daily work days. But kind of figuring out how to tackle things like one piece at a time. I think another common thing that I've heard is, everybody wants to get all this done at once and wants to get it done ASAP. Going into it, having an ASAP mindset, it's not going to work. Like, it just doesn't. So
yeah, this is a step-by-step.
Yeah.
Like, you have to get all of the pieces done and be thoughtful about it. Otherwise you're wasting your time, right?
Yes. So, there's a lot of different things, like making sure you're tracking things, making sure, you're testing things, you're kind of getting some good feedback from the right people. I don't want to say send it out to your whole email list once you're done with a buyer persona, because everyone will have an opinion, and it's probably not any of them are the right ones. I don't want to sound mean, but the people that you trust, like, as confidants in this sort of situation. Or if you don't, then ask somebody that you do trust that isn't a marketing professional, that might know another marketing professional that could give you a good referral. But doing it also piece by piece is also another good thing when you're thinking about the investment and, do I have, the revenue to cover this sort of thing. And if you do things piece by piece, you most certainly do. If it's a priority to make sure that you get the leads that you want, there's always somebody or something that could happen out there where you're like, you know what, I have $300 for the next 2 months or something. And, something can be done with that. So even just hiring somebody to try to help you figure out what your next
strategy
step is. yeah, give you a list of things
Yeah.
to do. And like I said, people don't, have a lot of times have the time to do that, but it can all be done one way or another. And, finding somebody who's patient, who will try to help you walk through the process however you need them to. That's also important too. But yeah, like step 3, figuring out what your next steps are.
Yeah.
I think that's, as good as it's going to get.
Can I add one thing?
Absolutely.
I would also suggest making sure that your contact form is not just a generic one. Like if you look at our, form for getting a quote from us, it gets really specific and asks a lot of hard questions. And I think that's part of what helps make sure that the right people come through to us. Because if you're not ready to commit, if you don't know the answers to these questions, then you're not going to fill it out, right?
Yeah.
So that's another thing to think about, as your leads are coming in, what kind of things can you do to help, ask or position it so that if they're not ready to work with you,
Right.
they're not wasting your time and contacting you.
Yeah. It's like it's like your form is the qualifier instead of someone sending in the form and then you qualifying it. I mean, sure, it depends on your process or whatever. You might have a follow-up meeting to talk, but like for ours, for example, it's more to get to know somebody and to kind of just dig a little deeper on the qualifying questions if they're, if they're open for a discussion about those. But
yeah.
Yeah.
And I just want to give a quick little case study.
Yeah. Let's hear it.
So how long have you been working at Smack Happy?
I guess almost 3 years. 3 years.
3 years.
Really
Okay.
bad with numbers, guys.
Yeah.
My own numbers, my personal numbers.
So Smack Happy before Danielle, whenever I would get leads that were from Google or Yelp, they were not the best leads. They would be price shoppers or just not serious or just terrible projects. And over the 3 years that Danielle's been working at Smack Happy, the leads that come through Yelp and Google now are amazing leads. They're like real companies with real investment and awesome projects. And I have to say, I think that's because of the work that you've done on the Smack Happy website, both technically and just creating content. Like you're a content machine and it's amazing. So, sorry?
I said, thank you.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a testament to the fact that putting really good content on your site, becoming a leadership and authority in your topic, it actually works.
It does.
And it takes a while, we've been getting good leads for maybe a year and a half because it took a while for you to get all of that into place. Maybe roughly a year possibly, but
yeah,
it takes time, but it's totally worth it.
Yes, it is. And I'm going to do like a shameless sort of promotion here, but all of that reminds me of, I'm thinking in my head, like, and I wouldn't have been able to kind of dedicate the time that I've had to dedicate to Smack Happy with managing different projects and stuff without our team, because they do so much too, and it really all kind of works together as this big, circular, nice team thing. I can't even come up with a way to say it, but they're awesome. And I guess that was saying, we're doing our little development of a fun course.
Oh yeah.
And it has a lot to do with who you hire. And definitely can be related to this conversation, because if you are at the point where you're wanting to do something with getting more leads or your website or marketing, and you don't want to do it, but you do have the investment to hire someone to do it, there are some kind of cool steps that I think Nicole suggests that you take to figure that part of it out. But yeah, shameless name drop there. So
Yeah, we've got some great resources for building your team, and we're working on a course for that too. So
yeah,
very exciting stuff.
it is exciting things ahead. I think, got anything else?
No, I think that's some pretty solid info. We'll include some notes and some downloads to go with all of this. And well, thank you for watching or listening and joining us. And please subscribe so you can be notified when we put out the next one.
Cool. I guess until next time.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.